Hi, I'm Diane Binscoter, and this is Own Your Brain, the Stories Campaign. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and today our story is the story of two women who were born into a religious cult. It just so happens to be the same one that I was in for 5 years, so it's an important story from my perspective, and I hope that you'll learn a lot from it too. So here's their story right after this.
The difference between the us and the them and that perspective within the church, anything within the church, your family that was within the church and other members, that was kind of the realm that was accessible. And everything outside of that, which, like I said earlier, included any discussion about books or politics or anything exterior, was completely rejected, and really that was represented as satanic. It was Satan, it was the other, it was dangerous, it was self-indulgent. Any expression of self or identification with self was really considered satanic, for lack of a better word. Satanic, it was just self-indulgent. It was not encouraged.
We were these pure children of God, but yet it was so easy to swing to the other pendulum and go with the devil. So pretty immediately I thought I was like messed up on a deep level because I went to the other side.
And so from a really early age, I guess my sense was that what I was being taught about purity and God and kindness was not being demonstrated in our environment at all. And it was the very opposite of that. So my intuitive sense was that this wasn't God. There wasn't God in that environment. And what really kind of tipped the scales for me was that I had a boyfriend when I was 15, and I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it right and bring him home and meet my parents, and that was a big deal. And I did. I brought him home, and I was shaking the whole time. And he knew about the history, and he came into the house and was kicked out within a minute. The door was closed in his face, but I did it the way that was in line with my integrity, and it was wrong. And for me, that was really the ultimate tipping point, is seeing I can't even, I was really suffering over my own sense of identity. It was like the church kind of turned against the truest part of me, if that makes sense, and it always had.
I think that I never fully trusted the church. And the point where it was really obvious where the families were split up so much, our family went up to upstate New York, got kicked out of the house so members could come in and take over the house 50 at a time because it was time to fundraise. So the family just had to go somewhere. So it was either grandma's house down the road or something. And grandma would always whisper, "You don't have to believe in what they do." So she was a blessing, just this one lady who was so phenomenal and held that space, even though it was this quiet, faint whisper, because she was a little fearful of my father and everything that was behind him, pushing her to give her property away and join. Like, they were fighting about it. So it was like all this in-family fighting, and it didn't feel right from a very early age. And with all that movement of family and not really having a base and letting the church rule, it just felt wrong all along. And it wasn't until maybe we had tickets to go to Korea, my older sister and I, and she had to stay at home. I was 11, my sister was maybe 12 or 13, we're a year apart. And we wanted to go back from upstate New York to Portland, Oregon. And they said, well, if we can just see our friends, we can go back and then we'll go to Korea. But a cult lawyer happened to find my sister through some neighbor friends and got it all together so she could go to court against my family and the church. And that's when it just blew open. And I knew it took that much to really know that the courts ruled in favor of all of us not leaving state, and that was the ruling, so we didn't have to go to Korea. But they also gave us the option to be split up as a family, as kids, so we would all go to separate homes. And that was frightening because we were such support for each other. And we decided to stay and within that support work frame and just eked it out for the next maybe 4 years before we all moved out, or tried to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The hardest part about growing up with the Moonies was the self-loathing that was put on everyone. That somehow the collective prayer was, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I'm horrible," sweating, rocking, crying, hitting themselves. It's my memory. And I felt somehow that I didn't know how to pray when somebody asked me to pray. Every day I'm going to work thinking I'm fooling them all because I don't really know what I'm doing. Something about that. And it's pretty much stayed with me my whole life, and I've recognized it, I've worked with it, I've come to peace with it, like I just feel it. I've done a lot of meditation.
So the greatest challenge for me coming out of the church as a young adult, as a teenager, was to organize in my mind the experience that I had had from birth to when I left the house and then into my young adulthood, was organizing what had happened, because it was really a continual state of chaos and disorder, and to understand myself through unraveling that process is what was most challenging, but was essential to understanding who I am and how to function in the real functioning world as a person who has purpose and meaning in my life.
If I have advice for people who aren't feeling like they're belonging in the organization that they're in, or system or family, it would be, is your heart fulfilled? Does this path have heart? Do you connect with people? If you don't find a little bit of joy and connection, there's something wrong. Because as humans, we're meant to have that. And even if it is a connection within what we're struggling with, it doesn't all have to be happy. But to have connection, meaning guidance, really getting real with people. If we don't have that, find it. Get out of the envelope that you're in and find it. Take that power back. Don't let other people have your power. And don't give your power away by, if someone thinks that they know everything and know what to do, and know what the answer is, they probably don't. Only we know what that answer is for ourselves, because we all have a unique gift waiting to be expressed, and sometimes we find it down, this kind of path, and that's okay too. There's no right way, but find what moves you. Full expression. I could find my expression and get it out. Get out what's inside.
And so what I would say to myself when I was in that pain, or to someone else who's kind of on that edge and isn't sure what to do, I would say, if something, or if the people in your environment or the experience, if you're feeling shame and you're feeling guilt and you're feeling like you're not in alignment with who you are, that's not real, and that's not where you belong. And only you know that and can identify it. What are you thinking and feeling, and who are you with when you feel good? And what are you doing when you feel good? Because that's how we're meant to feel. And that's what's going to guide us in our lives to our true path and where we belong, and to the people we need to meet and the challenges. So trust your heart. Trust it. The pain of leaving what you know it's painful, and that's a real pain, but it's even more painful to not be true to yourself. You're going to suffer a lot, and you can decide when to do it. There's no pressure. But how long do you want to have that suffering? And it will only deepen. It really will. And that's not the answer I want to say, but I think that's the truth. If you're struggling with who you're leaving behind and that disconnect and what you will lose, I'd say be open to considering that sometimes people follow it by example. And if you're suffering in a situation, I can guarantee people around you in that environment are suffering. There's a lot of suffering, and if you can be the person to lift yourself out of that and first find your own voice, then other people, you make a wave. And, there's no guarantee that someone will follow, but people will notice.
Well, the sense of accomplishment that comes even later, of finding your own voice and speaking it in an area, in a place that it's not accepted, usually will come back around in some form or another. Like, trust that will come back into your life.
This has been the story of Ray and Sonia Pearson, who were born into the Unification Church and were willing to share their story with us today. If you were here last week, thanks for coming back. If this is your first time, be sure and subscribe, because each week I'll be bringing you a new story. Today is actually the last time I'll be in Portland, Oregon for 9 months, because I'll be traveling around the United States and Canada gathering stories to bring to you each and every week. There's a couple buttons I want to tell you about below. There's a button to subscribe, as I said. There's also a button that will take you to my website, Own Your Brain. There's one more important button, and that's the Contact Me button. If you have a story or you know someone who has a story, please hit that button, because your story could be the one that makes a difference in someone's life. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next week from another location.